Japan anime news powered by Newtype. We'll be bringing you the latest anime news again this week. Actually, it's already April, so new anime series have started airing. We'll be talking about that, and in the second half of the program, we'll discuss Miracle Giant's Dome-kun. Thank you. Hello, this is Naoki Yoshida, a Nippon Broadcasting System announcer who just entered graduate school this April. This program is a podcast that delivers anime information to the world. We'll share Japanese anime news and culture globally based on the latest anime information gathered by KADOKAWA's anime magazine Newtype editorial department. This program is being recorded on April 7th, 2025. Also, please note that we are using the multilingual voice translation tool Lingueene, so languages other than Japanese are translated by AI and may contain inaccurate expressions. Yesterday was the 10th. And although we're recording this on April 7th, so I don't have it in my hands yet, the monthly Newtype magazine's April 2025 issue has been released. You know, it wasn't labeled as the April 2025 issue on the website, but if you look at the cover image, it says May issue, right? The website probably means the May issue. What comes out on April 10th is normally the May issue, isn't it? Well, these days, back when I was a kid, I used to wonder why something released in March was called the April issue, but that's because they're always looking ahead. So yes, it's the May issue. This time, the cover and featured article is Mobile Suit Gundam Siege X. Yes, and they say it's packed with information about April anime starting this month, but at this point, Siege X is probably creating quite a buzz out there in the world, though I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Even though the theatrical version had that kind of beginning, I'm really curious about how the TV version will turn out. There's some confusion, though. It's airing late night on Nippon TV, but apparently it's somehow embedded within some Japanese variety show. So for some reason, I don't understand. I've set my recorder to catch it along with Shinya Ueda's program. Makes no sense, right? Is it the same for Kiryu Fan Club? Oh, I see. The drama. In Zeta Gundam's case, it wasn't like the 1 year war was portrayed in that format, right? They're probably not going to animate the variety shows before and after it as part of the anime, are they? They wouldn't go that far, would they? Personally, I'd kind of like to see that. It would be amazing if they did. If this prediction comes true, that would be incredible. But that's probably not going to happen. So let's move on to this week's latest anime news. Did I not mention this yet? The Kuta Hirano Grand Exhibition is currently being held in Ikebukuro. Speaking of Ikebukuro, it's become a place where there might actually be more anime fans than in Akihabara now. But isn't Kuta Hirano a bit too intense for it? He's famous for works like Hellsing and Drifters. But Kuta Hirano is basically someone who delivers full-throttle, over-the-top expressions as entertainment. So there are Hellsing characters displayed on the streets right now. They've got Alucard and others hanging all over the place, and I'm a bit concerned that people who pick up the manga because they're drawn to these displays might be in for quite a shock. Anyway, this Kuta Hirano Grand Exhibition is being held at Sunshine City in Ikebukuro until April 13th, though I believe it's also running on March 27th. So I've been to Ikebukuro several times myself, and I was always impressed by how strongly Kota Hirano's influence comes through when looking at it. There's also a report on Newtype's webpage. You should definitely check it out. This time, they're recreating famous scenes centered around more than 230 original drawings, along with anime footage and sculptures. Apparently, there's also an audio guide that has some rather extreme expressions and is completely useless as an exhibition guide. I get that feeling. It's probably because everyone wants to hear things like the major speech, which I assume is on display. I haven't listened to it myself, but even if it's exhibited, that kind of content is difficult to release to the general public. This is about publishing, right? Even though it's released to the public, there are things you can only express when people have to deliberately seek it out. I mean, this podcast is listened to at the listener's own risk. When I speak on broadcast radio, there are definitely expressions where I think, I can't say this. That's why I'm publishing. You can definitely go further than you can in other media. I just discovered a post from Kota Hirano. Well, not a post, but an X-post. I found his X-post about the Kota Hirano Grand Exhibition merchandise in Ikebukuro. As of April 1st, it's completely sold out. Absolutely nothing left. Someone, probably a regular visitor, commented that not even a weed is growing there. In response, Hirano wrote, "Though there are parts I can't quite read already, you'd think items like the fat guy acrylic stand, the eyeball-covered Aloha shirt, or the jelly that looks like blood transfusion packs wouldn't sell that well, right? That's exactly what he's selling. Oh, Hirano, I want those things. That's precisely what customers want. I totally get it. That's awesome. Really awesome. Honestly, all of Hirano's other posts are just as entertaining. I was just following him now. I follow tens of thousands of people, so whether I see their posts is purely luck. Whether I can see posts from people like him, yes, it's just chance. Anyway, this Kohta Hirano Grand Exhibition, now I want to go even more, yes. And the sequel, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun 2, is confirmed to start broadcasting from July. You know, as I mentioned before, according to those who analyze Regsa data, teenagers make up a really small portion of Japan's population right now. Despite teenagers being such a small demographic, this show is incredibly popular among teenage and 20-something women. It's remarkable, just this specific audience. The sequel to this anime, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun 2, will begin broadcasting from July, and a teaser visual drawn by the original creator Eidairo has been released. The first season of the TV anime aired in 2020, followed by the short anime After School Hanako-kun in fall 2023 and 2024. And then the second season began airing in January 2025. And since we're right at the season transition period, there are lots of announcements about new productions starting after others have ended. Did I mention the medalist story here the other day? Also, Shangri-La Frontier has been confirmed for a third season. This was announced right after the final episode of the second season. And the series everyone around the world has been waiting for the continuation of, Dan Da Dan. Season 2 begins airing July 3rd. The July season is already looking incredibly packed, isn't it? It's been decided that it will air every Thursday at 12:26 a.m. They've announced the key visual and additional cast members. For the role of Jashi, which had only been shown visually before, Mutsumi Tamura will be playing Jashi from Yokoshima at the Sichuan capital meeting. That makes sense. And it's been announced that 10 cast members have been selected for the feature-length animation Nameless Life, which was created by just one person over a year and a half. I believe this is director Tatsuya Suzuki, whose self-taught short animation Mahoroba, which he created during the COVID pandemic, won the Special Jury Award at the PIA Film Festival. Or maybe it's director Tatsuya? Anyway, the 10 main cast members have been announced for his feature-length debut, Nameless Life, which he spent a year and a half writing all by himself. It really feels like we're rapidly approaching an era where animation can be created by just one person, partly thanks to AI. I wonder what this means. Will this lead to blockbuster hits? Or perhaps we're entering an era where the concept of hits becomes irrelevant. I recently had a chance to meet and chat with an AI researcher, and when I asked what they've been reading lately, they said they're having AI write custom books specifically for them to read. Made-to-order books. That makes sense, in a way. I thought, yeah, you could definitely use AI like that, which struck me as quite interesting. And speaking of AI, those Ghiblification animations were incredible, weren't they? Everyone was talking about it. Like, soon we'll have Studio Ghibli creating their own versions of our life stories. It feels like this kind of thing might happen within the next year or two. What's going to become of all this? But you know, despite all that, I'd still absolutely want to watch other people's original works. The Anonymous Life is apparently a story that begins with a bullied, lonely boy living in Sendai who decides to follow in his father's footsteps and pursue becoming an idol. And now, Cardcaptor Sakura's Star Wand has been transformed into a cosplay toy for adults. A cosplay toy for adults? Premium Bandai started taking pre-orders at 4 p.m. on the 7th for the special memorized Cardcaptor Sakura Star Wand, an adult cosplay toy based on the TV anime Cardcaptor Sakura that aired in 1998, priced at 7,480 yen. So this has already begun, right? Yes, it has started. What's special about this? It looks pretty normal at first glance. Oh, it rotates with a motor. So because it has a motor inside, maybe they're concerned that children might break it if they play with it? Well, you know, you really wouldn't understand the appeal unless you're deeply into this stuff. You could definitely use this for cosplay. Wow, so this might create movements we haven't really seen before. And then MAPPA established their music label, MAPPA Records. As an animation studio, they're now one of the most valuable studios out there. Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, and starting this April, they're doing Lazarus, which, by the way, had me shaking. That show is insane. Of course, everyone gets excited about the incredible animation that's visually stunning, and the first episode was amazing because it makes you desperately curious about where the story is going. But from a radio professional's perspective, the sound design is absolutely phenomenal. Director Shinichiro Watanabe really has amazing music, doesn't he? But it's not just that the music is cool, it's that the flow of sound is something you absolutely don't want to interrupt. You know what I mean? The most important thing on radio isn't necessarily saying interesting things, but making listeners want to keep listening. So we don't want to hear weird sound arrangements or bad rhythm. We just don't. That's where things change, but man, Lazarus has incredible sound. It's truly beautiful as a DJ play. The dialogue, sound effects, and music together. In Lazarus, at moments where you want a gunshot, the gunshot sounds like a musical instrument. It's that perfectly integrated. I really truly trembled with excitement. It's my absolute favorite among their current works. Yes, that MAPPA music label. It's quite convincing. I wonder if they'll make Lazaro too. MAPPA Records says they'll work with composers and artists to create music that embraces the worldview of their works even more than before, exploring the possibilities of music animation. Going forward, in addition to producing music for their works, they'll distribute music content worldwide and release CDs and LPs. You mean they're making vinyl records? Since they mentioned LPs, they'll also venture into organizing live events, aiming to create more opportunities for fans to enjoy their works. That's what they're planning. And Bees will be performing the theme song for the new Lupin the Third movie. Is that right? The all-new film Lupin the Third. The movie, Immortal Bloodline, is confirmed for release on June 27th. This marks the first 2D animated theatrical release in about 30 years since Lupin III, Dead or Alive, which came out in 1996. So while we've had 2D animation for the TV series and 3D animated theatrical films, it's been 30 years since we've had a 2D animated Lupin theatrical release. For this film, the rock band Bees will perform the theme song titled The Third Eye. That's been decided. They really match the title nicely with the theme. Come to think of it, when you think of Lupin III, you think of Yuji Ono's jazz, right? Lupin III was once able to collaborate with Detective Conan, but that was possible because they shared a musical atmosphere, wasn't it? But is this a mix of rock and jazz this time? That's mentioned in Bees' comment. I think it turned into an interesting piece with Bees' mixture of rock, jazzy elements, and gorgeous horn section. Is that Mr. Matsumoto's comment? Let's see. But recently, Bees is a rock band, but they're even doing morning drama theme songs and such. It's not particularly unusual for rock bands to do that sort of thing nowadays. But somehow when it comes to Lupin III, it feels like, whoa. Because Lupin is a master thief who tries to stay inconspicuous, while Bees has never tried to be inconspicuous, right? They always try to stand out as much as possible. And that's the right approach for rock stars. That's right. I know Bakudan. Love Bomb, right? Yeah. Ultra Soul. That's definitely true. Well, let's get started. So, as usual, we've received an email that I'd like to share with you. Thank you as always, Kapeina-san. Hello, this is Kapeina. Thank you for always reading my messages. This week was dominated by news about Trump's tariffs. I wonder if this affects Japan as much as America. Well, actually, this news is probably being covered worldwide, right? I think it might not impact soft products like anime as much as hard products like cars. But is this topic being discussed in the industry or media? Radio stations cover this as general news, but since we don't really do any international business ourselves, I'd say Nippon Broadcasting is pretty much unaffected. Though it might impact our sponsor companies. Stock prices have really plummeted lately. I wonder what's going to happen. I don't think there's any sentiment like Japan should import more American animation, right? We're already importing plenty, aren't we? And there aren't even tariffs on them. I think Hollywood movies, Western music, and other entertainment are already sufficiently available in Japan. Yes, exactly. And speaking of that, this is totally random, but my 19-year-old daughter has become completely obsessed with Back to the Future right now. She might have gotten hooked because some theater group is doing it as a musical or something. Anyway, she's totally into it and started looking for Back to the Future parodies and similar content. That's how she discovered Rick and Morty. So now at our house, this incredibly crude and twisted animation is constantly playing. But I absolutely love it too. I mean, I can't even begin to describe Rick and Morty here. It's just amazing how they create this stuff. It really makes me realize how well America handles content zoning. And I hear that, Capin-san, you have a college-age daughter? We may have mentioned this before, but your college-age daughter used her spring break to visit Japan in March. You briefly mentioned this earlier. You didn't discuss anime-related topics with her beforehand, but she made sure to check out anime merchandise from current hits like Frieren and the Apothecary Diaries. She's really on the cutting edge. She also went to Disney, browsed vintage clothing shops in Shimokitazawa, and enjoyed K-pop merchandise and Korean food in Shinokubo, but apparently didn't do any typical tourist activities like visiting Kyoto or Mount Fuji. I think there are many inbound tourists like this these days. One thing that made me curious, though, she came from America, right, and went to Disney there? I see, that's interesting. Some people want to travel all around the world, while I personally enjoy going to Shinokubo to check out K-pop merchandise and Korean food. That's my thing. That's what I'm talking about. But since we're broadcasting worldwide, I wanted to ask about something. When I went to America and told someone I was Japanese, they responded with, "Oh, cool, I have a Korean friend." That doesn't really make me feel like, oh, I see. We're quite different countries separated by an ocean. From our perspective, it would be like if we went to Finland, met a Finnish person who said they were Finnish, and we replied, "Oh, really? I know someone from Norway." That's the kind of thing we might accidentally say. There's definitely that disconnect. Like they're clearly different countries, but I guess that's something you wouldn't understand unless you're from the region. So, if we were to go to Finland, we'd probably end up going to a Norwegian restaurant in Finland, right? And I feel like the taste wouldn't be that different from authentic Norwegian food. Korean restaurants in Japan are probably quite authentic since Korea is our neighboring country. But Korean restaurants in, say, South America might be a bit different due to the geographical distance, though I've never actually been there myself. So I wonder if that's okay. I suppose if you look at it from a worldwide perspective, they're pretty much the same kind of places. But I bet there are definitely these local differences. Because if you get really specific, like, I'm living right next to where I live, well, I am living there, in Cho Ward. Ha 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 ha. I feel like I'm about to say something ridiculously trivial. When you really think about it, they're not the same at all. Well, America too. You know, American cities are completely different from each other. You'd see if you went there. They're so different, you'd wonder if it's even the same country. That's why they call it the United States originally, you know. Makes sense when you think about it. Now, and today's main feature is this one. Hello, I'm Barcelonian Co. Thank you very much. Thank you for reading my message the week before last. My Spanish wife understands a little Japanese, but otherwise, I translated it, and we shared the joy together. And Matsuzaki-san, please make a Spanish version of Lingueene. I feel like I could make at least one. That's true for this time too, right? Because there might be people waiting. In Barcelona, you'll inevitably run into someone wearing a Kame-sen in school t-shirt just by walking a little bit. There are so many Dragon Ball lovers and anime otaku here, so the podcast audience should grow too. I expected it, but Yoshida-san, you had already been to Salon del Manga, hadn't you? So locals really do know about it. I heard the circuit breaker tripped as soon as you arrived at your hotel. That makes sense. Also, because it's an area with little rain, when heavy rain occasionally falls, the power to street signals sometimes cuts out. If mobile suits were manufactured in Barcelona, even Cha would be shocked by their poor performance. Oh, speaking of which, that fully CG Gundam made with Unreal Engine that was on Netflix was set in Europe, wasn't it? Was Barcelona mentioned? I don't quite remember. I think it was a bit more to the east, and I never imagined you would be so interested in Miracle Giant's Dome. I'm grateful that you're willing to research information about Dome. I'm sorry for giving you homework when you're already so busy. No, for us it's just interesting to hear that Miracle Giant's Dome is popular in Spain, and since you're researching it as a writer, Mr. Nemoto, I'm just saying, oh really, and listening. So yes, these are the research results about Miracle Giant's Dome. Originally, Miracle Giant's Dome-kun was created by Shotaro Ishigami. He could be considered one of Japan's most important authors after Osamu Tezuka, having worked on series like Kamen Rider and Cyborg 09, and his work was published in Gakken's educational magazines. Oh, it was in the educational ones. Gakken has magazines for each grade from 1st through 6th grade, but most kids quit reading them around 3rd grade, don't they? Yeah, by the time you're in 6th grade, you're probably reading things like Jump instead. They have these grade-specific magazines, and when you buy them, they recommend additional publications like Learning and Science, X-Grade Science, or X-Grade Learning. If you go one step further, they try to sell you the science magazine Copal 21, but interesting. Oh, that's right. It's like a parallel world story. Did they use the kun suffix when addressing characters? What was that about? They used kun, so younger students could learn politely, referring to characters as so-and-so kun. So they didn't use plain names in the publications for younger kids, huh? Well, even the title itself includes Miracle Giant's Dome-kun. Synopsis. You know how in soccer, there are sometimes 15-year-old professionals, right? In baseball, there definitely aren't any under 18. It's after high school, right? Is there some kind of agreement about that? Well, whether there's an agreement or not, maybe at 15-16 they just haven't reached professional level skills yet. Though there are some who debut in high school or middle school. This is actually about a real project. In the world of Dome Cruise, Age restrictions were abolished to discover talented children, while implementing many limitations for child protection, such as annual appearance counts and permissible performance times. There are proper child welfare laws in place. Under child welfare laws, those under 15 can't work after 9 p.m. That makes them difficult to use in prolonged operations. Last week, did we have that discussion? How did that go? Did something happen? I see. So the opponent is trying to stall for time, like to prevent Dome from coming out, though we can't just have Dome alone. I see. They're attacking from an unexpected angle. Each baseball team works hard to discover children with exceptional talent, and kids who are just as good as, if not better than, current pro baseball players have started making their mark in the baseball world. The protagonist is an elementary school student named Dome Shinjo, whose father is a legendary batter. He's a pitcher for the Yomiuri Giants with the uniform number 1 to 2. I remember this part. I remember this. The number comes from when he first pitched to Nakahata, and the ball only traveled half the distance from the mound to the batter's box. In 4th grade, his talent was discovered by Suguru Egawa, who requested him to join the team. This is a real player, by the way, because he has many magic pitches that take advantage of the Tokyo Dome's characteristics. He doesn't pitch in away games. Is that right? Initially, his main role was as a closer pitching in the 9th inning, but later, he also became a starting pitcher. The 9th inning often happens after 9 p.m., right? That would be impossible for Dome, wouldn't it? That's when he starts pitching as a starter, right? And here's a fun fact. Back when children's baseball manga was becoming popular, to bring back interest in the game, was that really the case? I think the generation just before that was still crazy about baseball, so compared to them, it just seemed like people weren't as enthusiastic. It's not that popularity had actually declined, but there was this strong sense of crisis, which shows they weren't complacent about it. The J-League was created after this, right? Yeah, around 1991, or 92, or was it 93? The J-League boom was incredible at that time. Anyway, it was created as a story about a child succeeding as a professional baseball player to help revive interest in the sport. Also from 1989 to 1991, a Dome-kun doll was handed to Giants players when they hit home runs at Tokyo Dome. This was part of promoting the mascot character that was created when Tokyo Dome was completed in 1988. Here we see foreign player Warren Cromartie. When Cromartie hit a home run, he's holding the Dome-kun doll in his left hand. See that? See that? If one of those still exists somewhere, it would be worth a lot, wouldn't it? Or maybe I just want one. Which is it? Perhaps because it's connected to the drama of hitting a home run. At the end of the program, there was also a segment featuring baseball instruction by Giants players and coaches with information about Dome-kun's involvement with the Giants. I think I remember that. This feels familiar. This was definitely on Nippon TV, right? It has to be. They're part of the Yomiuri Media Group. And wasn't this connected to Zoom in Morning or some show like that? I think there was a segment back then that featured inside information about each baseball team, and this was probably connected to that. My memory's a bit fuzzy on this, so I can't say for certain. The ending theme was The Feeling When Cha-Cha Became Kind. That would be Kuni Kawamata, right? It was produced by Studio Gallup, known for shows like Kiteretsu Encyclopedia, Kochikame, and Ojarumaru. They're a reliable studio capable of creating animations suitable for kids. The director was Takashi Watanabe of Slayer's series fame, now that you mention it. Magical pitches. That was pretty standard for anime back then. In 1996, all episodes were rebroadcast on CS Family Theater, but since then, it's become one of those shows that hasn't been rebroadcast on CS channels. Apparently, only the first 10 episodes and a special were released on VHS, with no further home media releases. On director Takashi Watanabe's website, which is now closed. There's a claim that the master tapes stored in Gallup's warehouse were submerged in a flood, which is said to be the reason. We still don't know if that's true or not. We should properly verify it. Someone saw it in Barcelona, right? It exists in Barcelona. Whether it's the master tape, of course they might have been watching from a VHS with grainy quality, but it's like it doesn't exist in Japan, yet remains in Spain. Is something like that happening, like with ukiyo-e prints? I wonder if there's a Catalan dubbed version, or maybe Spanish, but the point is that a dubbed version might still exist at a Spanish broadcasting station while it's lost in Japan. Wow, I want to investigate this. I really want to look into it. If it is the master tape, would the Japanese audio still be on that master tape? Even if they say it's a Japanese master, it's obviously not the original master created by the main producer, but there's a possibility that there's a master made to be just good enough for broadcast. If it was a master prepared for broadcasting, there might be Japanese audio remaining in the reference materials. It's also entirely possible that only the Spanish version remains. I'm quite curious about this too. When was this broadcast in Barcelona? Was Cha-Cha's song played as is? I wonder if, without us knowing, players like Egawa have gained huge popularity in Barcelona. What's the situation there? I'm really curious. Hey, Barcelona Nyanko, I hate to impose, but could you tell us what you know about this? Could you tell me a bit more about this? I wonder how that worked. Because Japan didn't have digital transmission back then, right? I think the physical tapes must have been sent across countries, you know? They might be digging into this. So, should we try contacting director Takashi Watanabe? It's Studio Gallop, but we'd really like to get in touch with Studio Gallop, wouldn't we? Yeah. This podcast might have just found a whole new purpose on a different level, like the Miracle Giants, Domkun, that shouldn't exist is actually in Spain. This is definitely like Night Scoop detective show. It's Night Scoop material for sure. I'd love to do that. So that's where we are with this. And for the first episode, I know many of you haven't had a chance to see everything yet, but if there's something that caught your attention, this is the perfect place to discuss it freely compared to other venues, so please send us your thoughts. That's all for today's Yoshida Naoki Japan Anime News powered by Newtype. When posting your impressions of the show on social media, please use the hashtag JioJAnime. If you have feedback about the program or anime news you'd like me to discuss, please send us an email. There's plenty of opportunity for that, so we're waiting to hear from you at janime.total42.com. That's janime.total42.com. We'll be back next week with the latest anime news. This has been Nippon Broadcasting System announcer Yoshida Naoki.